The next story is called How Tam Scott Lost His Sight. It comes from the island of Sandy, which is the island where my father came from. All the Mewers in Orkney came from the island of Sandy. So, Muir is a Scottish name as well. It means moorland. But there is a lot of Mewers in Sandy and has been for many, many centuries. And but there is an area there called Muir as well, which may be the origin of it. Not sure. You could argue about it, but what's the point? No, it's a name. But my family have been here with one exception. I have a great grandmother that came from Fair Isle, which is the island belonging to Shetland to the north of Orkney. It lies halfway between Orkney and Shetland. And my great grandmother came from there. But other than that, all my family are either from Sandy on my father's side or the island of Westray on my mother's side. But this is a story from Sandy, how Tam Scott lost his sight. Now, Tam Scott was a boatman. He owned a boat that he used to hire out, and it would take people and cargo between the islands. And at the time of the Lammas Fair in Kirkwall, which was a time when everyone gathered in front of the cathedral at St. Magnus and in Kirkwall, and they would sell things. So everything was for sale there, from animals and clothes, and everything you could imagine was for sale. And so Tam picked up his passengers and he set sail down to the fair from the island of Sandy, which lies further to the north of the mainland. And he noticed as well, as they were going, that some of the girls, he could just make up just a little mark of soot on their chests. And this is where their mothers had signed them with a sign of the cross, because they were worried that Finn folk might try to abduct them. Now, the Finn folk lived in a beautiful city under the sea, with palaces made of coral and crystal, but they also had islands that floated on the surface of the sea, and they called it Heldeland. In the Old Norse, Hilderen was a mirage at sea, where you can see an island that you know there isn't an island there. So Hildeland just meant a mirage, really. But as we see, it could be very, very solid as well. Now, as I said, the mothers had painted the sign of the cross in soot on their daughter's chest to protect them from the Finn folk, and they sailed the boat down to Kirkwall, and everything went fine. And they all went off their own ways, and the man that used to crew the boat with Tam, he went to the nearest inn and bought himself some ale. So he was happy drinking away there, and Tam was wandering around, and he would have a cog of ale as well. A cog's is a wooden drinking vessel. He would have a drink of ale as well, and talk to people that he hadn't seen for a long time. Everybody met up there. People came from all over Orkney and from Shetland and from Scotland and all over. Now there was a stranger walked over to Tam, a tall man with jet black hair and black moustache and beard and very dark eyes as well, almost black. And he said, "I hear you have a boat for hire." "I do," he says, "yes. I want to take a cow to one of the North Isles. Would you do that for me?" "I could do. When do you want to do that?" I want to do it now. Oh, right. Okay. He says, well, I can do that. Yes. And he said, I'll pay you well for taking you away from the fair so early. But I'll meet you down at the pier in an hour's time with the cow. Okay. So he went looking for his pal that crewed on the boat with him. But when he found him, he was lying on his back in one of the small lanes, drunk. He'd drank so much ale, he'd fallen asleep. So Tam gave him a kick and cursed him, and then went down to the pier and started to prepare his boat for the journey. And sure enough, the stranger comes down the pier leading the cow by a rope. And Tam was thinking, I wonder how we're going to get that cow into the boat. You know, I mean, it's not going to be easy. But to his amazement, the stranger picked the cow up in his arms, just like it was a lamb, and set it in the boat. Now, Tam made a note of that. You know, this guy is super strong, so I'd better keep on the right side of him. Don't want to fall out with somebody like that. So the man got in the boat and they cast off, and they went out, hoisted the sail, and they were sailing across Kirkwall Bay. And Tim was a friendly guy. He liked to have a chat and talk to people, and he was trying to engage the stranger in conversation. But the stranger just remained silent and looked at him with a kind of a glower, you know, not a friendly look. And all he got out of him was he kept saying, a close tongue keeps a safe head, which was a polite way of saying, be quiet. So after talking to him for a bit and getting no reply, but a close tongue keeps a safe head, he gave up. And he also remembered the fact that that man just picked up a fully grown cow like it was just a little lamb, you know. So he thought, okay, I'll do as he says. I'll keep quiet. But as they sailed up through Kirkwall Bay and past Thieves' Home, they were coming towards the island of Shappensea. And Tam says, do you want to put into Shappensea? East of Shappensea, says the man. So they sailed the boat through the string. And again, Tam thought he would have another try at talking to the man, but all he got was a close tongue keeps a safe head. So they headed north, and they were approaching the island of Stronsay. And Tam says, do you want to put into Stronsay? And he said, east of Stronsay. So they went around the east side of Stronsay, and they kept going north. And there in front of them was the island of Sandy. And he said, do you want to put into Sandy? And the man says, east of Sandy. Well, Tam liked a joke as well as anyone. But he said, east of Sandy? I can't go east of Sandy. There's nothing east of Sandy but Norway. And this boat is not big enough to cross the North Sea. But the man said, east of Sandy. So again, remembering the cow and all that, he thought, okay, I'll just do as I'm told. So he sailed east of Sandy into the North Sea. And after a very short time, he saw something which really unsettled him, because almost floating on the surface of the sea, there was a mist, a thick sea fog. And he says, we'd better turn back. There's a fog there. That's dangerous. A close tongue keeps a safe head, said the man. Well, a close tongue might keep a safe head, he says, but a fog at sea spells danger, and we might be lost. So I'm turning back. Keep sailing, he said. So he carried on going, and they sailed into that fog. And as they were coming towards it, it seemed to shine like a silvery color, like the sun was setting behind it. It shone, glimmered. And as they sailed into the fog, the stranger said to Tam, "I must blindfold you now for the rest of the journey. You won't be harmed, don't worry, but you cannot see where you're going." Now, remembering the cow and all that, he allowed himself to be blindfolded, and so he couldn't see. But the thing is, the stranger hadn't done a very good job of it, and he could, with his right eye, he could see underneath the piece of cloth, and he saw that they had sailed out of this bank of fog, and there in front of them was a beautiful green island. There was streams running down the hillside there towards the sea. There was fields of corn blowing golden in the breeze. The skylarks were singing, and there was herds of cattle there that were blue, and they were grazing on the hillside. And as they got nearer to the island, he could hear a song, the most beautiful song he'd ever heard. It was the song of the mermaids, and they sang to him from the rocks. And the song that they sang was a song of desire and love. And his heart was lost to it. All he wanted was to be there with them. But the stranger shouted to them, "Away you go. He has a wife and children back on Sandy Island." And when the mermaids heard that, the song changed to a lament, a song of sorrow and sadness, which brought the tears to Tam's eyes. Now, the next thing he knew was the boat had grounded on a beach, and he could hear voices of people around him as the stranger was welcomed back, and he got out of the boat, and he could feel the boat becoming lighter as the cow was lifted out and set on the shore. And then the stranger threw a bag of coins into the boat and said, "There's your fee. And just keep going and you'll be home in no time." And they turned the boat widdershins against the course of the sun, which no person would ever do. You never did anything against the course of the sun. Everything was done in a clockwise manner. But they were in league with the devil, so they had pushed the boat away to the other side, to the wrong side. Now, Tam pulled the blindfold off, but he discovered that he was surrounded by mist again and couldn't see where he was. But sure enough, in no time at all, he came out of the bank of fog, and there in front of him was the island of Sandy, which he recognized well. And so he went home, and when he looked in the bag, he discovered that he had been paid well, right enough. But all the coins were copper coins, because the Finn folk have a great love for the white money, as they call it, silver. They will not be parted with a piece of silver. So all the money that he got was in coppers. But it still amounted to a lot, and so he was happy. Now, the following year, he set off again with another full load of passengers and sailed down to the Lammas Fair in Kirkwall. And his passengers left, and he was wandering around in a Cogo Ale again, catching up with old friends he hadn't seen since the previous year or maybe a few years before. And he's chatting to somebody here and chatting there, and he's having a good time. And then he saw someone that he recognized. He saw the stranger with the jet black hair and the black moustache and beard and the dark, dark eyes. And he recognized him as the man that had hired him the year before. And so he went over to him and he smiled and he said, "Hello, it's good to see you," he says. what have you been doing since I saw you last? The man's face went as black as his hair. And he said, see me? Did you ever see me? And he took a box out of his pocket, which Tam thought was a snuff box. And he opened the lid. And he was expecting him to offer him a pinch of snuff. But instead of that, the man held the box in front of Tam and blew into it. And it blew dust from inside the box into Tam's eyes. And his eyes burnt and were sore. And when he opened them again, he couldn't see a thing. It was just pitch blackness. And the man said, you'll never have to say you saw me again, and went away. And Tam was left from that moment on blind. And, you know, you have to be careful sometimes with strangers, because there's many a foul heart hidden beneath a fair face, as Tam discovered to his cost.
Wow.
So you get these stories with somebody comes and asks an old woman to come and help his wife have a baby. It's generally known as midwife to the fairies. So it's a fairy man that takes an old woman into blindfolds her and takes her away, so she doesn't know where she's going. And then when she's unblindfolded, she's in this beautiful palace, and she's taken to this woman, and she helps to deliver the baby. And then she's given a pot of ointment, a little pot of cream, and told to dab some of that cream onto the baby's eyes. And either she tries it herself to see what it is, or in some cases, she's just got some of that ointment on her finger, and then she rubs her eye quite innocently, and suddenly she can see the fairy world. And she can see that it's maybe not as wonderful a place as she thought. But then after that, she can see the fairies. And then one day, she gets caught out because an old fairy woman sees her and sees her looking at her and knows that she can see her, and says, can you see me? And she says, well, of course I can see you. And she says, out of which eye can you see me? She says, my right one. And the old woman jabs her finger into the woman's eye and blinds her in the eye so that she can't see the fairy world again. And so Finfolk don't like to be recognized, which is the point there, is that he was blinded because he'd recognized him. And they're not keen on that. So.
Oh. Yes, this is so tense because they want fairies want to see it, so want to be a secret world, and people that want to discover more about this world, you'll be in a danger.
Yeah.
Be blinded about that. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is very tense story.
Yes.